Hi, I'm Brad Gibson. I realize that those watching this video today know who I am. However, if this video manages to successfully pass down to future generations, I will undoubtedly be unfamiliar to my descendants. I was born Bradford Kent Gibson on January 29, 1951 in Portland, Oregon. In 1968, I had my middle name legally changed to O'Grady because my mother's maiden name was Grady. Mother was born Joyce Marie Grady on June 23, 1921 in Tulsa, Oklahoma. These videos were filmed in 8mm and later Super 8mm film by my father, William Duval Gibson, who was born in Portland, Oregon on February 15, 1922. My father started filming the family just after my first birthday in 1952 through the summer of 1983. Since old film like this had no sound, I have added dialogue and various sound effects. On special occasions, my father would rent a movie projector and show us the family films and read out loud dialogue that he had written, which I have edited and or added to here. This is the first roll of movie film that my father ever shot. The date was April 20, 1952. I was 13 months old, and my brother Rick, or Richard Duval Gibson, was just over 4 years old. Rick was born on January 3, 1948 in Portland, Oregon. I had a slight cold and was teething, and Rick was impatiently waiting to go to the store. Thus, everyone's spirits weren't what they should be. The plan was to send the movie clips to Uncle Len, Dad's younger brother, who was serving in the Air Force in Japan during the Korean War. Like normal boys, Rick and I had difficulty sitting still for the camera. These sequences were shot at the first house I ever lived at, located at 7408 Southwest Canyon Drive in Portland. Throughout my life, my parents always referred to this place as the cottage. The other kids in these clips were neighborhood children. I was wearing my first pair of hard-soled shoes, while Rick had a brand new pair of tennis shoes. By the end of the day, everyone was pretty upset. Dad and Mother kept trying to get Rick to make me laugh, but Rick wouldn't cooperate. This short clip was taken on Memorial Day in 1952 at Multnomah Falls. It was the first time the family had driven up the brand new Columbia River Highway. I stayed home with my grandmother Gibson while Mother, Dad, Rick, and Aunt Gloria ventured up to the falls. Taken in June of 1952, these scenes show Rick and I playing in a rubber wading pool at the cottage. The following clips were taken at a place called Kittyland near Beaverton. This was Rick's second visit to the place, so he was an old hand at it. In August 1952, Mother, Dad, and Rick visited Seaside just after Labor Day. Taken at the Seaside turnaround, this was the first time Rick had ever seen the ocean. Rick was apparently afraid of the ocean. You can see Dad here having to practically drag Rick by the arm into the surf. This footage was taken on Christmas Eve in 1952 at the cottage. Present besides myself was Rick and our parents, plus Aunt Gloria and Uncle Len and Gloria's mother Pearlie, as well as Mom and Pop. Those were the names that Rick and I had given my dad's parents because, well, that's what Dad called them. Pop, or Will Evans Gibson, was born in Anthony, Florida on October 1, 1894. Bertha May Duval, my grandmother, was born on April 21, 1892 in Duval, Washington. I remember when we were older, Dad tried to make Rick and I stop calling our grandparents Mom and Pop, but rather grandmother and grandfather. But he failed to change our behavior in this regard. We continued to call them Mom and Pop until the day they died. During this Christmas, and many others, Mother would take Rick and I across the street for a short visit with the neighbors. Upon returning home, Rick and I were always shocked and disappointed that we had just missed seeing Santa Claus in the flesh. Here we see Rick celebrating his 5th birthday with Mother, Dad, plus Aunt Gloria and Uncle Len. Taken on Easter Sunday in 1953, after Rick and Dad had dyed some Easter eggs, us boys can be seen entering the room to find toys, candy, and a cake arranged on the coffee table. In the early summer of 1953, I can be seen playing in the yard at the cottage, including some time with a dog named Pal. In September of 1953, Gammy, or Mother's Mother, can be seen sitting with Rick and I. Gammy's real name was Evelyn Marie Grady and was born in Ottumwa, Iowa on July 10, 1886. Gammy had bought us boys a box containing a fascinating plastic block-like thing to play with. Here you find Rick and I all dressed up for Halloween in 1953. When we were young, my parents always celebrated Christmas on Christmas Eve, as shown here in 1953. When we got older, however, we started celebrating Christmas on Christmas morning.
Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright, round yon virgin mother and child. Holy infant, so tender and mild, sleep in heavenly peace, sleep in heavenly peace. Silent night, holy night, shepherds quake at the sight, glory stream from heaven above, heavenly hosts sing hallelujah. Christ the Savior is born. Christ the Savior is born.
In the summer of 1954, Dad filmed us playing in the front yard at our new house on 31st and Bybee Boulevard in Portland. The first scene shows us boys riding on a tricycle that Mom and Pop had given Rick. That's followed with us riding in a wheelbarrow that Pop had made for us. Then we try our hand at horseback riding with Dad. Finally, I become displeased about something and start sniveling. On Christmas Eve in 1954, our relatives join us again, but this time Great-Grandma Holloway, or Mom's mother, in the dark sweater and glasses, attended as well. Grandma Holloway was born Mary Frances Holloway on October 10, 1870, in Mansfield, Illinois. Poor Grandma Holloway. When she was in her 90s, she lost her mental faculties and once got loose from the nursing home in southeast Portland. She was later found wandering down the street, completely naked. I'm sure she was very nice to Rick and I, but we both hated visiting her in the nursing home because she always wanted to give us boys hugs and kisses. Yuck!
We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Good tidings we bring to you and your kin. Good tidings for Christmas and a Happy New Year.
In this last clip, I could be seen being taken upstairs to bed holding my doll Cherry. Cherry had a soft, squeezable plastic head. In August 1955, when I was 4.5 years old, Rick and I can be found playing in the wading pool in the front yard. The house was being painted, which explains why the house and the garage are different colors. In September of 1955, the family visited Seaside, staying in a basement apartment on the prom. It was here that I got to see the ocean for the very first time. Later that week, we spent some time at an amusement park in Seaside. Apparently, upon returning home, we all came down with colds. On Christmas Eve in 1955, Mom, Pop, Grandma Holloway, and Uncle Len and Aunt Gloria arrived for the festivities. As I mentioned earlier, Mother would take us boys across the street to visit the neighbors on Christmas Eve. Upon returning home, you can clearly see Rick's unhappiness at missing Santa Claus yet again. In July of 1956, the family embarked on a trip to Victoria, British Columbia. The scene begins with us boys helping Dad load up the car. Then Mother comes out of the house and sticks her tongue out at the camera as she passes by. Our first stop on the trip was to Lake Quinault in Washington, where we spent the first night. Later, we visited Cadillac Beach, further up the peninsula, where we stopped to play in the sand for a while. The next scene is taken at Rosemary Inn on Lake Crescent, where we spent the second night. I'll never forget how excited Rick and I were when we rowed across the lake and buried a bottle cap in the dirt near a railroad tunnel. Dad then shot some clips at the ferry terminal in Port Angeles, as well as some scenes on board the famous ferry Kalakala. The Kalakala was the first ship that Rick and I had ever sailed on. The ship had a unique streamlined Art Deco style, but was scrapped in 2015 after restoration efforts never materialized. Here we are entering Victoria's Harbor, followed by Rick and I walking in front of the Empress Hotel. We're then seen walking past the Parliament building. Lastly, Dad films us departing Victoria, heading back to Port Angeles. In 1956, we celebrated Christmas for the first time on Christmas morning. I'll never forget the anguish us boys went through each year thereafter, having to wait outside our parents' bedroom door, waiting for Dad to get up on Christmas morning so we could go downstairs and open our presents. That year, we were joined by Mom and Grandma Holloway. After filming some decorations, Dad filmed us boys opening our presents, which included an erector set for Rick and a wagon for me. From there, we then went downstairs into the basement to find a wind-up train for me and an electric train set for Rick. Notice Rick's excitement and my lack of the same. You can tell from my reaction that I felt completely gypped. Rick got a real electric train set up on an elevated platform, while I had this cheap toy train that I had to sit on the floor to play with. Also in the basement, but out of view of the camera, was our first television set and a pair of red stilts that Dad had made leaning up against the wall. Apparently the stilts attracted no attention. In August of 1957, Mother and Dad took a train ride down to San Francisco to attend a trade show along with another couple who I'm unfamiliar with. In September 1957, the family vacationed at Nescoin, Oregon, where we vacationed a number of times while I was growing up. Joining us were friends of my parents, Ren and Reba Taylor, with their two kids, Dirk, who was Rick's age, and Doreen, who was my age. Sadly, when I was in college, I learned that Doreen had been killed in a car accident, reportedly while on her way back home to straighten out from some kind of a drug or alcohol problem. Her death really hit me hard because Doreen was the first person my age that I knew who had died. While at the beach, we took a horseback ride, flew a kite, and threw baseballs with Dad. As for that kite, Dad always liked using box kites. Problem was, he never seemed to be able to get it to stay up in the air like the regular kites that everyone else had. While on this trip, I remember accidentally stepping on a rusty nail on the beach, which required a trip down to Newport in order to get a tetanus shot. Here we find Rick, myself, and Dad trimming the Christmas tree a few days before Christmas in 1958. Following that is film of us opening our presents while Mom, Pop, and Grandma Holloway looked on. A week after Christmas, Rick is seen here celebrating his 10th birthday with Uncle Len and Aunt Gloria in attendance. In July of 1958, we took another vacation trip to Nescowan. After filming the motel we stayed at, Dan filmed Rick and I petting one of the two beagle dogs that we had named Hot Dog and Cold Dog. Later on this trip, Rick, Dad, and I rented a boat and rowed out onto the Nestucca River, taking turns with the outboard motor as well as rowing. The Taylors again joined us in Nescowan, where we find Rick, Dirk, and myself playing with a water rocket. We also got to play on the Taylor's air mattress. On New Year's Eve in 1959, my parents hosted a New Year's Eve party at our house. I only remember two of the couples in attendance, the Nelsons and Ed and Jean Hunt. Ed is seated on the floor to the right, and Jean is the lady wearing the pearl necklace. Jean had some kind of illness and was unable to bear children. Sometime in the 60s or the 70s, Ed, who wanted children very badly, divorced Jean and married another woman and raised the family in Eastmoreland. In July 1959, the family took a vacation trip to British Columbia. We're first shown here frolicking on the beach at a state park on Whidbey Island. Later you can see us coming out of the hotel in Victoria. The last scenes find us on a ferry between Nanaimo and Vancouver. Here's a short clip of Rick and I riding our brand new bikes on Christmas Day in 1959. In August of 1960, we took a vacation down to California. The original idea was to visit the Oregon coast, but it was raining so hard that Dad decided to head south until we escaped the rain, which happened to be San Francisco. After riding a cable car, Rick and I can be seen riding inside a diving bell at an amusement park called Playland in Ocean Beach. The diving bell was introduced at the 1939 New York World's Fair. Since the camera wasn't running while we were underwater, it appears that the bell dives down and pops right back up immediately. In reality, we were underwater for several minutes. It was a blast, especially the ride up. Playland was torn down in 1972. In June of 1961, we took a trip to Disneyland. I have to tell you, Rick and I had been waiting all of our lives to go there. That is, 10 years in my case. The film begins outside the main gate and follows us throughout the park. I remember thinking how cool it was that I got to eat a bag of Fritos chips when we stopped for lunch, something we weren't allowed to eat at home. While there, we rode a double-decker bus, rode on a train around the park, and drove several different kinds of miniature cars. We also rode through the Matterhorn on a suspended cable car and got to watch a movie screen which surrounded us on all sides, all 360 degrees. That was cool. Later, we visited Marineland of the Pacific and got to watch whales and porpoises perform for the audience. Marineland closed in 1987. These scenes were filmed at Fort Stevens on the Oregon coast, where my dad's company held a company picnic in 1961. Dad was the general manager and vice president, so Rick and I had to be on our best behavior. You know, being the boss's kids and all. This is me driving a soapbox derby car that Dad and I had built down a hill on Crystal Springs Boulevard in Portland. In August of 1962, we spent 9 days on the Oregon coast at a place called Starfish Cove, north of Agate Beach and Newport. The cabins have been since torn down. I remember what fun Rick and I had playing poker each night with Dad, while Mother curled up on a sofa to read something. Playing poker made me feel all grown up. This was also the first time I got to taste sharp cheddar cheese. Yum! Here we rent a motorboat and venture out onto Yaquina Bay. Later we ran into an intense rain squall, which made us question whether we'd get back in one piece. Because my first day of school that fall was a few days before Rick started high school, Mother and Dad put me on a bus back to Portland where Mom picked me up. Rick, Mother, and Dad thus stayed at the beach a few days longer than I did. I kind of felt gypped over the whole thing, having a few less days of summer vacation than Rick did. However, it was kind of exciting to be traveling on a Greyhound bus all by myself. One evening, we built a bonfire on the beach and roasted hot dogs and marshmallows. I remember laughing so hard at Mother, for you see, the tide was coming in and the waves were getting closer and closer to our bonfire. At one point, Mother panicked and scurried back up the beach to the cabin. On October 12, 1962, we visited the Seattle World's Fair. The very same night, the famous Columbus Day storm hit the Pacific Northwest. Considered the storm of the century, we were moved twice that night to different motels because of severe water leakage due to damaged roofs. We finally settled into a place on Queen Anne's Hill. I was so impressed by the big city of Seattle that I swore I would live there when I grew up, which of course I never did. While there, we got to ride in this big spinning barrel where the floor dropped away, leaving us suspended in mid-air with our backs up against the wall. Notice the really stupid hat I bought at the fair with the huge feathers sticking out the top? In August of 1963, Mother, Dad, and I visited Rick at Frog Lake, where Rick was spending a couple weeks at forestry camp, sponsored jointly by the Boy Scouts and the U.S. Forest Service. Notice the transistor radio that I'm carrying? Throughout most of my early teen years, I never went anywhere without my radio. Could not miss my rock and roll. Also, in August of 1963, we spent a couple days in Seaside before Rick and I were dropped off at the Boy Scouts Camp Meriwether. While in Seaside, Dad filmed Rick and I play acting as combat soldiers. 3 shootings and 1 knifing. In June of 1964, Dad filmed me running in the cross-country race during field day at Dunaway Grade School in Eastmoreland while I was in 7th grade. I came in second to last and was truly mortified because Christine Locke, the new girl in school, was watching me. However, the following year, I rectified my poor performance by coming in second place. In August of 1964, we visited the Oregon State Fair in Salem. In August of 1965, we vacationed on Vancouver Island at a place called Shawnigan Lake. While Rick and Dad went golfing one afternoon, I vividly recall motorboating out on the lake all by myself while listening to my transistor radio. I still remember listening to the song 100 Pounds of Clay. I was also getting very excited because I was starting high school in a few short weeks. It was here that Dad, Rick, and I all tried water skiing for the very first time. I was really proud of myself, for I was the only one of the 3 of us who didn't wipe out and fall down when coming to the end of my run. The last scene on this vacation shows Rick, Dad, and myself at the driving range. This is film that Dad shot of Rick running in a track meet at Cleveland High School in Portland in 1965. These clips are of our Australian Silky Terrier named Jenny, who, in her typical exuberant manner, ran back and forth in the backyard, barking at anything that would move. To say Jenny was hyper would be an understatement. Even more interesting, Jenny would spend hours licking the wax off the kitchen floor. Can you say weird dog? In order to use up the remaining film in the camera, Dad filmed me raking the leaves on the front lawn. Notice the high-water jeans and the nerdy white socks? In August of 1967, Mother, Dad, and I vacationed at this really cool place in the Sierra Cascades east of San Francisco called Twain Harte. Rick had a summer job fighting forest fires, so this was the first time he did not vacation with us. We stayed at a cottage called the Barry O. I had my own upstairs bedroom in this loft. I remember at night reading several paperback books about World War I aviation. My favorite was They Fought for the Skies. Twain Harte was like a small city that was dropped into the middle of the woods. In the center of town were lots of amusement rides and attractions for kids, including an outdoor dance where each night teenagers would listen to rock and roll bands, and there were lots of pretty California girls. Unfortunately, to my chagrin, one afternoon while Dad and I were swimming at the town's lake, my temporary tooth fell out of my mouth and slowly drifted down into the darkness of the lake. For the rest of the vacation, I had a tooth missing right in the middle of my upper mouth. No girl would ever give me the time of day looking like a toothless nerd. That's why I never asked any girls to dance. During that trip, we drove over the old Sonoma Pass and stopped at Pinecrest Lake, formerly Strawberry Lake. While there, Dad and I rented a rowboat and also did some swimming. Later on, Dad and I did some horseback riding at the Lazy Z Ranch near Twain Harte. The final scene shows us crossing over the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco on our way back to Portland. I have absolutely no idea where or when this film of Dad practicing golf was taken. In August of 1968, Dad and I ventured up to Olympia to check out St. Martin's College, where I was considering attending. Part of its appeal was that it was over 100 miles away from my parents. Dad was shocked to learn, however, after I started classes, that it was in fact a co-educational college, unlike Central Catholic High, which was all boys. I believed he thought not having girls around would keep me focused on my studies. While visiting, Father Scott gave us the grand tour of the campus as well as a steak lunch. Now that's my kind of place. Later, Father Scott would become the president of the college. On December 20, 1969, you find us leaving the house for a trip to the Southwest. We spent Christmas Eve in Lake Tahoe, where I found a $20 bill laying in the snow as my parents snuck me into a casino. I felt really cheated when Dad made me split the bill between the four of us. However, I felt somewhat vindicated when I hit the jackpot on a nickel slot machine. The payout was only $7.50. Unfortunately, the attention I garnered when I hit the jackpot drew the attention of the casino staff, who kindly asked us to leave. I did, however, get to keep my winnings. On the trip, we visited the Hoover Dam and then the Grand Canyon, where Dad chartered a small plane that flew us down into the canyon. We learned later, about a year later, that the pilot who flew us had disappeared into the canyon without a trace. He was the first pilot to ever go missing there. Here we are visiting the Davis-Monthan Air Force Base outside of Tucson, where the government stores its surplus planes. Later on the trip, we spent a little time in Juarez, Mexico. That was followed by a scene of Rick and Mother walking in the plaza of Old Town in Albuquerque. This is a 270-degree panorama view taken on a snowy New Year's Day in Taos, New Mexico at the 1,200-year-old Pueblo settlement there. Next, we visit the ancient cliff pueblos at Mesa Verde in Colorado. This is a clip of the Four Corners, where four states join together at a single point on the map. Here we find Rick practicing driving along the Columbia River Gorge in the dead of winter on very dangerous icy roads. Mother and I were scared shitless. On May 13, 1972, Dad filmed Linda and me leaving the church where we were married in Olympia. I remember it being the hottest day of the year so far. In attendance, besides Linda and my parents, were Linda's sister Margie, Rick, who got leave from the Navy to attend all the way from Norfolk, Virginia, plus Mom, Uncle Len, and Aunt Gloria, and Aunt Violet, who was Pop's sister. Margie, not being the sharpest tool in the shed, managed to use shaving cream to accent our car instead of whipping cream. The result was a permanent stain of her artwork on the finish of our Barracuda. In this scene, Linda and I and Tara, who's just 2.5 months old, journeyed down to Portland to visit Mother and Dad and Uncle Rick. This scene was taken at Christmas in 1974 at Uncle Len and Aunt Gloria's house in the West Hills in Portland after we had enjoyed a Christmas dinner at a local restaurant called Nandel's.
Bells on bobtail ring, making spirits bright. What fun it is to ride and sing a sleighing song tonight. Oh, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Hey, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. A day or two ago, I thought I'd take a ride, and soon Miss Fanny Bright was seated by my side. The horse was lean and lame, misfortune seemed his lot. He got into a drifted bank, and then we got upset. Oh, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Hey, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh.
On June 25, 1977, Mother, Dad, Rick, and his wife Signa traveled up to Olympia to see Linda and me in our new house on Linda Street in Tumwater. Strangely enough, the lady next door was also named Linda, as well as the lady across the street. And 2 doors down from us was a guy named Brad. With Linda's parents, Joe and Marge Scheller, also in attendance, Dad filmed us all acting kind of silly. In 1978, while Linda and I were moving to Vancouver, Tara spent a weekend at Mother and Dad's house in Eastmoreland. While there, Dad took Tara down to Oaks Park, where Rick and I used to roller skate many weekends when we were growing up. On Christmas Day in 1978, Mother, Dad, Rick, and Signa visited Linda and I and Tara in Vancouver to celebrate the holiday. Here's film of Rick and his son Andy horsing around in the front yard at my parents' house in Eastmoreland. In 1982, Linda and I again entertained the family for Christmas in Vancouver. In attendance were Rick and Cygna's two boys, Andy and Bryant, who was just 2 months old. Colleen was almost 2.5 years old. The very last film Dad ever shot was at Rick and Cygna's house in Rock Creek, west of Portland, in the summer of 1983. The occasion was to celebrate Colleen's 3rd birthday. To this day, I have no idea why Dad stopped filming the family after 1983, considering that he lived another 22 years until 2005. Perhaps he felt old-fashioned movie film, which lacked audio, was out of date, knowing that I had a video camera since 1980. We will never know.